Yo, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet Violet VGC video. I'm your host Jose Rocks, and today is going to be the last day of the previous season. So I want to go ahead and drop a new rental code for the last season of Regulation H that's going to be coming up for December, and that's going to be from December 1st to December 31st, right? And then that night, going into January 1st, we'll be getting the new Regulation G. Doesn't look like they dropped any new mons into the game to make Regulation G any different from what it previously was. So we're going to be going back to a completely the same format. Only thing is that some of the mons that were able to, shine in Regulation H might come over into Regulation G and still have some usage. Things like Sneasler, right? Or things like Volcarona. Volcarona showed that it was really good in this regulation. Dragonite might show up a lot more with the new not this Dragonite specifically that I have, but the loaded dice set, right? So those type of mons may still be decent, pretty decent, because you're gonna probably see Sneasler with Unburden on like the what's the name of the Pokemon? Dang, Miraidon stuff, right? But mostly Miraidon because it activates the terrain, activates the Unburden if you have an electric seed on the Sneasler. So it's funny, we've only been going for them for like 3 months, but I kind of forgot their names. But yeah, so we're gonna be going back to that format. But until we get there, we still have one more month left of Regulation H. So I want to go ahead and drop some more teams for you guys with some unique rental codes, right? So this is gonna be our first team. We're gonna start with gonna be a Hisuian Decidueye team. Hisuian Decidueye has been a mon that's been good since Regulation H started, but I never actually got a chance to play with it, right? So this time I actually wanted to try to use it and see how well it did on the team that I feel is fairly unique. I haven't seen a team like this, but this team is really fun and I've been practicing with it a lot and it's actually really good. So the Decidueye is going to have Scope Lens, right? Scope Lens plus triple arrows gives you about over a 50% chance to always crit, and also it boosts up the crit chance of Leaf Blade, right? So Decidueye is going to be critting most of the time with the Scope Lens, so you don't really need something that like a damage and boosting item, because you have the crits, right? So think of it like a grass type Urshifu, similar to like you have the dark Urshifu and the water Urshifu. Think of it like a grass type. Only thing is that it can't go through protect, but Scrappy does allow you to be immune to intimidate and also hit ghost types, right? So while you can't go through protects, you can hit ghost types with your fighting type moves, which is really cool because you threaten Godingo with a one-hit KO, right? And with Tailwind next to Whimsicott, you can outspeed the Godingo and remove it before it gets a chance to move, and also like force out Terras that the rest of your team can do pretty good into, especially if you get Godingo to tear away from Steel. Then Dragonite can hit it with like Terra Blast, which is really strong. So it's a really cool Decidueye set. Fire Terra, just so you get around your fire weakness. Also gives you some pretty cool resistances in things like Fairy, things like Steel from Make It Rain. Also makes you immune to Burn, which is one way to slow Decidueye down since you can't intimidate it, right? So, and Haze is just for the Dondozo matchup. This team, kind of without Encore and Whimsicott, you really have to burst Dondozo down with Archaludon. But Haze allows you to just remove the boost, because initially I had upper hand on this set just to stop like fake outs, but I just decided to change Whimsicott to Covert Cloak, so I didn't have to really worry about fake out, because I have protects on the mons that you would probably want to fake out, as far as like Volcarona, Dragonite, and Ursalunda's Ghost Terror, right? So changing Whimsicott to Covert Cloak allowed me to not have to run Decidueye's upper hand and go for the reads, because upper hand, while it is good, you have to make a read that they're gonna fake out with their mon, and most of the time, Rillaboom or Incineroar might just attack or parting shot out and not even go for fake out turn one, right? So I didn't really want to have to make a prediction and wanted this team to be a little bit more consistent, so I went with Haze. Next is going to be Dragonite. So all the Dragonites in the format right now are multi-scale loaded dice. You're not really seeing any Choice Band, any normal Terra. They're all like Fairy Terra, Steel Terra, and Scale Shot, right? So I kind of wanted to go back to a traditional Dragonite set with Inner Focus and with Flying Terra, Terra Blast. So this Dragonite is really strong because it's made to be a sweeper under Tailwind with next to Whimsicott, and it can have some extra bolt because Whimsicott is carrying Light Screen, right? So going for like Flying Terror on things that have been chipped down by like Volcarona or by Decidueye or even by Moonblast and Whimsicott, you're able to just pick up a lot of KOs, and Skyplate allows you to get that extra damage boost on your Flying Terror, and it's doing a lot of damage that your opponents usually aren't expecting coming out from Dragonite, because they can kind of start calcing to survive the loaded dice Scale Shot, but they're not calcing to survive a Terra Blast Flying Terra Blast from Dragonite. And the reason is this does more damage than Scale Shot because you're tearing into a typing that you already have, and usually people that use Scale Shot don't Terra into Dragon, right? And then you also have an item that's boosting the flying type damage. So Terra Blast is actually doing a lot of damage. So when you do use this team, you want to try to use your Terra as much as possible on things like Volcarona and Dragonite because they're going to be outputting a lot of damage. Then we have E-Speed and Ice Sprinter for coverage. Ice Sprinters to help you get rid of terrain because Rillaboom can be kind of annoying cycling fake outs and grassy glides, even though they don't do too much damage into your team except Ursaluna. It's just we want to be able to prevent, Rillaboom from being able to use grassy glide as well as force it to pivot out, as well as getting rid of side spam. The only dark type we have is Incineroar. Now you can go with the Whimsicott and Ursaluna to help because they're very bulky with the combos that I made with them. But other than that, if you want to get rid of the psychic terrain, just go for the Ice Sprinter. So it's really good coverage into that, as well as opposing Dragonites and other dragons in the format when they might not be expecting you to carry Ice Sprinter, because usually most Dragonites right now are E-Speed, Haze, Loaded Dice, and Protect. Loaded Dice, Scale Shot, and Protect. Next we have Incineroar, pretty standard Incineroar. I wanted to go with this set just so I have some answers into Amoonguss with the safety goggles. Now you could go with something like Citrus Berry, which may just give Incineroar a little bit more health playing next to Whimsicott, just to make it a little bit more bulky. But I just wanted to be able to play around, Spore and things like Lilligant and what's the other thing? Vivian, that are kind of rising in viability, as well as like also what's the other? Toadscrew. So Toadscrew's also popping up and sporing things, right? So safety goggles, Ghost Terror is just really consistent in Incineroar set. Like I said, if you do want to, remake this team, then you can probably go with Citrus Berry just to make Incineroar a little bit more bulky since nobody else is using it. But I just wanted to be able to sit in front of grass types or Amoonguss with Decidueye and Incineroar and not have to worry about being put to sleep, as well as like if I wanted to sit with Whimsicott in front of them. And pretty much Parting Shot and Knockoff Flare Blitz is really solid playing on the Sun team. Don't discount Incineroar's Flare Blitz damage because it's going to be doing a lot of damage next to the Whimsicott and the Sun. Next we have Whimsicott, pretty standard Whimsicott set. We changed it from Ghost Terror Focus Sash into Covert Cloak Steel Terror. Just gives us a little bit more survivability with the Steel Terror because most of the things that hit Whimsicott for super effective damage outside of fire type attacks just gives you a lot of good resistances, and things like Population Bomb that can remove Whimsicott, you can survive that and get off your light screens and sunny days and tailwinds consecutively. And then we have Moonblast for damage. Light Screen is really good pairing next to Volcarona and Ursaluna, and even Dragonite, just giving it the extra bulk. Like any of the mons can appreciate the bulk from Light Screen, but Ursaluna and Volcarona are really good because Ursaluna, as you see, is going to be the Assault Vest set with Ghost Terror, and it's able to sit in front of a lot of special attackers and just deal really solid damage and come and clean up in the end game. As well as Volcarona with the Struggle Bug with Life Orb and Light Screen, you're able to really hinder the damage output of a lot of special attackers, even like Armarouge and Didi. If they try to set up Trick Room in front of you, I usually just go with Volcarona or Whimsicott and set up Light Screen, go for Struggle Bugs, and then just kind of clean them up with Ursaluna and Incineroar in the back. And it's kind of like my answers into like hard Trick Rooms, which is a really cool answer in my opinion. Volcarona with Fire Terror, Life Orb, Heat Wave, and the Sun just nukes a lot of different mons. And we also have Flamethrower for coverage in case you need to play around the Heat Wave misses. And then, like I said, Ursaluna is going to be the Assault Vest set, which is kind of popping up, and it's really solid. But we're going to go ahead and get into the next teams. I did take a lot of time doing this team because I think this is the most unique team that I'm featuring this month, and it's probably one of my favorite ones that I built in Regulation H, and it's really fun. So there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. Let's get to the next one. Alright, so next we are back to basics. So last month I didn't feature a Dondozo team, but now I want to come back and bring another Dondozo team out. And this Dondozo team is really strong. So it features the Mousehold Annihilate set. And like I said, when you're playing best of one, when your opponents see this, then they usually assume on Dondozo teams that it's usually the Rage Fist and Beat Up like 2-2 team. But this one is going to be the Population Bomb and Choice Scarf, because I just feel like this is so good at removing pieces from your opponent's field to where they don't have a lot of answers into Dondozo, and it gives you a lot of different outs in different situations. Dondozo's not carrying something like Clear Amulet or Oblivious, so it is kind of weak to Intimidate. So having Defiant King Gambit and Defiant Annihilate really makes this core really solid and preventing Incineroar from wanting to come play the game, which also allows Ninetales to thrive with the Blizzard damage, right? So Blizzard is also really good for the end game or even early game where you just want to chip things down so that Dondozo can come in and have a good time, right? And also it helps you with the Primarina matchup. Primarina is kind of like Force of Terror to get around the freeze dry, and then that allows Dondozo to outspeed and just, you know, remove it with like a wave crash if it tears into something like poison before it can get off the haze, right? Also, Ninetales pressures the Dragonites, which commonly like to come against Dondozo teams to haze you. Now they can't safely like just bring their Dragonite without having to worry about Ninetales. So that's why Ninetales fits the role on this Dondozo team, because it beats a lot of the haze users that want to, you know, haze Dondozo, as well as the clear smog users, except for Magmar. But you have other answers into Magmar by just removing it with like Final Gambit or like Population Bomb from Mousehole, right? Tatsugiri is going to be a unique set. It's going to be Steel Terror, so it's able to stick around a little bit longer. And Blunder Policy. Now, Blunder Policy is really cool on this Tatsugiri set because Tatsugiri actually really likes to miss moves a lot with a lot of the common moves that are used. Draco Meteor can miss, Muddy Water can miss, Icy Wind can miss. So it's really cool because we're running the Choice Scarf on Annihilate. So if Tatsugiri does miss a move, it gets a speed boost with the Blunder Policy, which can, you know, kind of turn some games around. And I really wanted to Focus Sash on Ninetales because usually I would run Focus Sash Tatsugiri if the Scarf is taken. But I needed to find another item, and Safety Goggles is also being taken up by Dondozo, so you can completely wall Amoonguss. Amoonguss can't spoil you, Amoonguss can't clear smog you, and then you can just have fun with Dondozo, right? And King Gambit's gonna be the last member of this set. So the Fire Terror gives you a lot of, you know, good resistances that King Gambit likes, except for ground. But ground types do not really do well into this Dondozo Ninetales team anyway, so you don't have to usually worry about that. And you can go for coaching next to King Gambit to make it bulky on the physical side, and then Assault Vest is really solid on the defensive side. And if they do bring something like Incineroar, you're getting the +1 on both Annihilate and King Gambit, so usually they're never gonna bring that, which is one of the more common fake out users, right? And next we have Rillaboom, which will be another common fake out user to stop King Gambit from moving. But going for coaching boosting, Rillaboom can't really do a lot of damage into King Gambit, even with high horsepower, once you get off a couple coaching boosts, right? So the only thing that, you know, that can stand up to King Gambit on lead is really a Sneasler with fake out. But then Sneasler's also just not too good into Annihilate plus Mousehole when you have Ghost Terror on Mousehole too, right? You just remove the Sneasler from the game. So it's a lot of different strategies that you can use for this best of one and closed team sheet, open team sheet, I should say. So if you want to give this Dondozo team a try, there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. Alright, next we have a balanced rain team. So, well, we don't have a fire type, so it's not full balance, but it's very solid defensively as well as offensively. So I wanted to create, you know, my final take on Archaludon Rain and try to optimize it as much as possible to make the best Archaludon Rain team I can. So I came up with this. So the Gholdengo is going to be max speed with Life Orb and Nasty Plot. The idea behind this is that since we're not carrying something like Steel Terror, I still want it to be really fast, as well as put out a lot of damage and not have to always go for Nasty Plot. So making rain with Life Orb, with Gholdengo having, you know, some special attack investment, is still really solid. But going for the Nasty Plot and being max speed allows you to win a lot of Gholdengo mirrors because you're usually faster than them unless they're like Choice Scarf. Because unless their max speed is a 50-50 chance, right? Other than that, they have to be Choice Scarf. And then the Water Terror just gives you a really good solid terror that fits the rain team, right? Just makes you really good into like opposing like ghost types, opposing dark types, opposing fire types, right? Gives you a resistance into that. Next we have Rillaboom, pretty solid Rillaboom set. So one thing to note is that instead of Assault Vest, we're running Loaded Dice. And this is really cool because this Rillaboom has Bullet Seed instead of Wood Hammer, which you can Bullet Seed into your Archaludon, which 4 times resists the grass type attacks, and you're able to get a +4. So one cool thing that you can do is lead you know, Rillaboom with like Basculegion, and if they do lead like their Rillaboom or like their King Gambit, you can switch out Basculegion immediately into Archaludon and just Bullet Seed into that slot, and now your Archaludon is boosted up, and then it's really hard for your opponents to deal with, which is something I really like to do with this team. So it's Rillaboom really pairs well with all these mines, whether it's faking out to set up Tailwind with Pelipper, faking out to set up Nasty Plot with Gholdengo, Bullet Seed into Archaludon to set it up, fake out to give, you know, Sneasler some time to get some attacks off, or even Basculegion allowing it to get off free attacks, right? So Rillaboom is going to be a really key glue to this team. And this team is really fun in my opinion. It's going to be, I think, my best Archaludon rain team I created. And I think it has a lot of answers into pretty much everything in the meta. Next is going to be Pelipper. So Pelipper is going to be Stellar Terror. This is just to deal out more damage. I did want to go with something like Ghost Terror initially, but I did feel like there's a lot of good switches opportunities for, and we have Protect, right? So we don't really need Ghost Terror. But there's a lot of opportunities to switch Pelipper out into Archaludon and get some free defense boost. So I really didn't want to go with the Ghost Terror. I wanted something a little bit more offensive. So this team does have defensive synergy, but also everything on this team is threatening huge amounts of damage, right? So going for Weather Ball plus Stellar Terror or Hurricane with Stellar Terror, Pelipper is able to dish out a lot of damage alongside all these other mons. So you're always having something on the field that's not passive and threatening damage. And Tailwind is just really solid and allowing like Rillaboom, Gordingo, and Archaludon to outspeed a lot of key threats. Focus Sash is really consistent, so Pelipper always survives 2 hit, at least one major hit, right? You have to use 2 hits to take it out. Next, Archaludon is going to be really unique. I went with Bug Terror. Bug Terror makes sense because Bug Terror's weakness is rock as well as fire. And being on a rain team, that fire becomes a neutral hit. With Archaludon being very bulky, it's going to be able to stomach those fire hits anyway. And also the rock types, because flying types and rock types also do not do a lot of damage into Archaludon. So a lot of your opponents are not never clicking those moves into Archaludon until after you Terra. But at that point, you've already got your defense boost, right? So the Bug Terror is a really good Terra type for Archaludon. Also, what is Archaludon weak to normally? Fighting and ground. Bug resists both of those, right? So it's a really good counter into that. And we went over Electro Shot, Dragon Pulse, Flash Cannon, and Body Press just to have some consistent damage across the board. You could go with something like, you know, Dark Pulse over the Flash Cannon just to give you a little bit better answer to Gordingo. But with us having, you know, a lot of water coverage with our own Gordingo, Basculesian, Pelipper, and Rillaboom high horsepower, it's not really necessary for Archaludon or Sneasel to have to deal with Gordingo, right? And also, if the rain is up, you can also hit it with Electro Shot, and it usually 2-hit KOs Gordingo. So Archaludon is going to be, you know, the centerpiece of this team. It's going to be a lot of your win cons, but it does fit well with all these pieces on this team. Next, we have Sneasler. Sneasler is going to be really solid because it plays a similar role to the Pelipper, where it's able to go for Stellar Terror, Close Combats, and Dire Claws, and you're able to deal massive amounts of damage. And then you have the Grassy Seed alongside Rillaboom, so that Sneasler can outspeed a lot of key threats that also have like their own Tailwind. Sneasler just still outspeeds them on Tailwind, is able to get off Dire Claws, put them to sleep, and also use really fast taunt, where you could taunt like Talonflame if you break its Gale Wings, and it's not able to go for its own Tailwind, right? So it's really cool at shutting down like Trick Room teams with taunt. A lot of people don't expect taunt on Sneasler. When you see a team like this, you may expect like coaching for the Rillaboom or the Basculesian, or even like Throat Chop to help you with the Gordingo matchup, or something like Fake Out. Fake Out might be the most common thing you see on this type of team, but we went with taunt because taunt surprises a lot of opponents. And it shuts down a lot of strategies where your opponents are not expecting their strategy to get shut down. Things like the Muck and the, what's the dang Pokemon name? I'm having a brain fart of Smeargle Muck strategies. Sneasler is able to shut those down. So it's really cool to try to taunt on a Sneasler. And when I do showcase this team, I'm gonna do my best to showcase how taunt can be really valuable on a Sneasler set like this. Last but not least, we have Basculesian, and Basculesian is going to be really solid, just hyper offense. It's not Life Orb, it's not Choice Band, so it allows you the flexibility to be able to protect and not take that extra chip. And Last Respect still does a lot of damage, even though you don't it's not boosted by Life Orb. But Splash Plate just allows Wave Crash and Aqua Jet to do a lot of damage in the rain. And when your opponents don't have good answers to Basculesian, you can literally just lead Basculesian Pelipper and then just win the game turn 1, right? So it's a really cool mon in that aspect, and it really does fit the rain team. So this is going to be my favorite and I think my strongest Archaludon rain team. So when you guys get a chance to give it a try, there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. Alright, so next we have SunRoom. So I have not used Hatterene yet, really ever in Sword and Shield. I mean in Scarlet and Violet since Sword and Shield. And the reason was before, I think Regulation F, Hatterene did not have Expanding Force. It just had like Psychic and Dazzling Gleam. So it wasn't like the premier Side Spam user. It was actually Armor Rouge. But now that Hatterene has Expanding Force, I wanted to give it a try, right? We could use Armor Rouge over Hatterene, but we already have 2 fire types on the team, and I kind of wanted to come back to Hatterene and build around it. and I just wanted to play with it. I think fairy coverage is really good in this format, and Hatterene just being very offensive is just really solid with its ability Magic Bounce. It's very unique because it makes it immune to Amoonguss, and you actually bounce the spore back. So if Amoonguss tries to tear it in front of you and spore into that slot, you can bounce the spore back and put Amoonguss to sleep itself, which is really cool and a really cool strategy that a lot of opponents don't really expect to come out when you have Hatterene and they're trying to spore into one of your, let's say they want to spore into Gallade because it underspeeds it, right? You switch it out into Hatterene and put the Amoonguss to sleep. When they tear it next to Torkoal, they try to like survive like a fire type attack. So it's really cool in my opinion to play with it that way, and it really suits this team. Of course, we have Psychic Noise on it instead of something like Protect or like a fire type attack because we have a lot of fire type coverage, and it just allows us to be able to get around Wide Guard and still get off a powerful Psychic type attack. And then we have Fire Terror just to get around a lot of Hatterene's weaknesses like Steel types. Makes you neutral to Ghost types, and also it also helps against like spread fire type damage. So it's really solid with that in that aspect. Lilligant's gonna be Stellar Terror. Sorry, I was running out of breath there. Lilligant's gonna be Stellar Terror, and it's pretty solid as well because it's able to go for Sleep Powders, Close Combats, Leaf Blades, and Stellar Terror just allows it to play similar to like the Sneasler, where you're able to pick up a big KO when your opponent may not be expecting Lilligant to go for that much damage. And after you just pairs really well with Torkoal because it's threatening. You threaten Trick Room with this team, and then you threaten like fast offense with Lilligant going for After You Eruption, and then Typhlosion coming in the back with the Choice Scarf and clicking Choice Scarf Eruption. So it's really cool. And then we'll with Gallade because Gallade is just so good in this format and it's so hard to deal with. The Steel Terror allows Gallade to like survive fairy type attacks and just a lot of like regular like steel type attacks like Population Bomb and things like that. So you can still get your Trick Room up. And let's say that your opponent leaves like Annihilate plus Mouse Hold, and they want to stop your Trick Room, you can just Terra Indeedee to be completely immune to the Final Gamut plus Population Bomb, or you can let your Indeedee go down to get a free switch into Torkoal and Terra your Gallade, right? If you feel like that's a path to victory, you Terra your Gallade so that you don't have a passive mon on the field, and Gallade can survive the Population Bomb from the Mouse Hold and get Trick Room up, and now you got a free switch into your Torkoal, and your opponent just gave up his piece with the Annihilate, right? So it's a really fun strategy to be able to stop that, which is a common way of stopping Trick Room when you do see Annihilate and Mouse Hold on the other side. Of course, Wide Guard is just very, threatening in this format to help you against spread type damage. Indeedee, like I said, the Ghost Terror is just to help you against like specific matchups to where they have fighting type coverage or normal type coverage to remove Indeedee, and it makes you immune to it, as well as like being immune to like Fake Out when you need like a late game Follow Me and you lost your terrain. So it's really cool in that aspect, and just gives you a lot of different answers into things. One thing to note that it doesn't get away from your dark type weakness, but with Indeedee being next to two other Trick Room setters on this team, and it's not that bad if Indeedee still goes down to a dark type attack, as long as you get off your Follow Me, because your Hatterene and your Gallade can usually survive, especially if you Terra them, they can survive a major hit and then still get up to Trick Room. Torkoal is going to be carrying Clear Smog to give you an answer to Dondozo, which otherwise you only have Gallade to deal with it. This gives you another unique answer into beating Dondozo. And then Choice Scarf Typhlosion, we already know what it does. Triple Fire plus, this should be Shadow Ball, but it looks like it's Shadow Claw there. I need to change that. That's actually, I need to go change that actually. Sorry about that. And then I'm gonna remake this runner code. Give me 1 second. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that right now. Sorry about that, guys. All right, there we go. Shadow Ball. So Shadow Ball, just to give you good coverage. I'm glad I caught that. Don't know how that happened, but there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. And I think that this team is very hard to deal with. It's very offensive, and your opponent has to react. And I love to play. I really like to play where your opponent has to be reactive to what you're doing, and you're being the aggressor, rather than you having to react to what your opponent doing. I think that's the best way to have success in VGC, is to be really active on your opponents and having them to play defensively against you and find answers to what you're trying to do. And that's pretty much what this team likes to do. But let's get into the final team. All right, last but not least, we have the Magmar balance team. So there's a lot of different variants and different ways to make this team, but I decided I wanted to go with the Magmar and Dragonite. Sometimes you'll see like Electabuzz, Bascalibur, and instead of the Ninetales, you see something like Primarina plus the Kingambit, Rillaboom, and Sneasler. But we went ahead and went with the Magmar set. So Magmar is just really good in this format. It rounds out the balance core, as well as there's a fantasy core because you have a fairy, a steel type, and a dragon type. And it just allows Magmar to be able to redirect and allow Kingambit to have a lot of success. And Fire Terror is really good on this Kingambit as well, because a lot of people are still just targeting to the Kingambit with like fighting type attacks and fairy type attacks and trying to call the dark type Terror. And with us having coaching on Sneasler plus Swords Dance, I didn't think there was a need for the dark Terror. Plus we have black glasses, right? So that Kingambit is able to be really supported by this Sneasler set, as well as the Magmar. And then you also have Fake Out with Rillaboom, pretty standard, especially defensive Rillaboom. And Ninetales is going to be a similar set to what we ran on the previous Ninetales Volcarona team from the previous month. And it's pretty much the same Ninetales. You're going to be able to go for really fast blizzards. And Ice Terror allows you to deal more damage with your ice type attacks. And then you have Encore, which also tearing into ice drops your fairy type coverage, but your focus sash, so that doesn't really matter anyway. But Encore really allows for a lot of end games that you lock up the end game when they protect in front of one of your powerful attackers or like one of your threatening attackers, and then you just kind of lock up the end game from that point. Sneasler is going to be Stellar Terror, similar to the other Sneasler. You're just going to be able to go for really powerful Dire Claws and close combats, as well as coaching when your opponent plays really passive in front of the Sneasler. And giving a coaching boost over to Dragonite, Kingambit, and Rillaboom can be kind of game defining. Last but not least, we have one of the common Dragonite sets. I really wanted to give this Dragonite set a try. I do think it's really strong, and paired alongside with the Sneasler, you have a really strong balance core. And this team just feels really good into like a lot of different teams, has answers into pretty much everything. You have terrain control, you have weather control, you have haze for Dondozo, you have offensive physical attackers, you have special coverage with Flamethrower and Blizzard from Ninetales, and you have just a lot of defensive synergy, as well as the balance core and the fantasy core. So if you want to give this Magmar balance team a try, there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. And this is just going to be my version of what I think that, balance looks like. But like I said, there's a lot of different ways to build these types of teams, but this is the one that I decided to go with. But that's going to be it for these teams. If you guys like this, type of content, go ahead and subscribe for me, turn on those post notifications, and give these teams a try. There's 5 new teams for you. This is going to be the last season of Regulation H, and if you think that, this team is going to be great for you, then I do think that you should go ahead and give it a try and see which one of these teams can, you can get to rank 1 with if you want to grind for it. I do think that every one of these teams has the capability of getting rank 1 on an in-game ladder. So if you guys do want to try to grind for that, leave a comment below and let me know how you guys get on the ladder. But that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoy the teams, and I catch you on the next one. All right, stay tuned. More new videos soon. Deuces.